Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel. Again, this is Philip, your psychology teacher in this YouTube channel. Okay, so for today, we'll have our second live video talking about the introduction to psychology. So, as I've mentioned in the last video, that before we proceed with other topics, other psychology topics, we'll need to understand what is psychology. Okay, so I have here the PowerPoint. So this is introduction to psychology. So first, we need to define what is psychology. So what do we really mean by psychology? Okay, so psychology, it is written here. It came from the word psyche, which means soul, and from the term logos, which means correct thinking. Okay. So you combine it, it is that makes the word psychology, the term psychology. So unfortunately, um, soul or s- or or soul is a spiritual being. We do not have direct access to souls. So basically, our basis in going or knowing soul is through the actions of human beings. So in philosophy, you can study soul. And well, in philosophy, they don't need direct access or real evidence about the soul. They prove the existence of soul through philosophical analysis. In psychology, and it was proven in philosophy that um, a human being is consist of body and soul. So the soul, it needs body in order to manifest itself, and the body needs a soul in order to function properly. So this is now the importance of the integration of body and soul. Our brain is just simply an organ. Okay. Without a soul, the brain does not function. In order for the brain to function, it needs soul. And for the soul to perform, it requires a body, it requires brain in order to perform cognitive abilities. Okay? So basically, psychology focuses in order to go into the soul, we need to look at how the person thinks. So, because as I mentioned earlier, the brain is the organ, cognition is the manifestation of the soul. Okay, so this is now the main focus of psychology. Okay, the brain. Unfortunately, we are no longer allowed to directly study soul. I mean brain. We're no longer allowed to study brain. In order for us to study brain, you need to have special equipments in order to access the brain itself. In psychology, what we are doing is to study the behavior of the person. Why? Because the behavior is the expression of what is inside of your brain. Okay? So, what is inside of your brain? Thus, we require observations, interviews, testing, experiments, so on and so forth, in order to study the behavior of the person so that we'll be able to conclude that his or one's behavior is a manifestation of what is the functioning of the mind. Okay? So, we need to have the behavior because the behaviors are the evidences of your cognitive abilities. And again, from the term logos, which is correct thinking, it requires a step-by-step strategy in order to have a proper analysis or output. So that is why psychology now is defined as the scientific study of behavior and mental processes. Or, I mean, other country, they have their own definition of psychology. However, in general, the easiest way or the simplest way to define psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes. Okay? So, when you talk about behavior, as mentioned earlier, is the expression of what is inside our mind. And mental processes talks about how we think, how we feel in every situation and circumstances. So, talking about your thinking, talking about your feelings, we refer them to attitude of the person. So basically, uh, in the simplest way to understand psychology is just simply scientific study of behavior and attitude. Okay? Attitude is something to do with your mind, cognitive abilities, and by the time you express it, it becomes behavior. Okay? Now, these are the two important terms in the definition, but we will not forget the phrase scientific study. So, what does it mean? If you remember in your probably elementary days or high school days, science is defined as a systematic body of knowledge. And psychology is a science, therefore, psychology has systematic body of knowledge. So when we talk about scientific, there is what we call order or systematic procedures that psychology practitioners follow in order to have a scientific output. Okay? So talking about scientific method, again, there's the orderly, systematic procedures that researchers follow as they identify research problem. Okay, so this is where psychology departs from philosophy. Probably you're going to say, well, even though I'm not a psychology student, or even though I didn't study psychology, so on and so forth, I know how to psychologize. I know how to analyze people. I know how to um, predict the behavior of people. Yes, it's given. It's part of the nature of man to analyze the behavior of people, uh, to make conclusions about the behavior of people. Now the question uh, is it scientific one? So this is where also a good psychology practitioner departs from those individuals who are just simply doing a common sense psychology. Okay, it's where they depart, because a good psychology practitioner always follows systematic procedure. Common sense psychology will just immediately conclude out from incomplete data. For example, if you see someone, a friend of yours or a classmate, stumbled, immediately you conclude, ah, he's clumsy. That's an example of common sense psychology. Why? Because you only have one information or data, then immediately you conclude. Okay? Well, in a strict sense, you call it heuristics in psychology. But of course, we're using the term as an introduction, we're using the term first as common sense psychology. Whereas if you are a good psychology practitioner, you've observed your friend or classmate stumbled. Of course, you don't immediately conclude that your classmate is clumsy. Okay? You collect information what happened. Okay? What happened? Is the person really like that all the time? Is there something in your friend's way that made him or her stumble? Okay? So again, you collect several information in order for you to have a good analysis of the behavior. And another thing to end this session, a good psychology practitioner will not end to the identification or to the naming of the behavior. Okay? If the behavior is considered undesirable, a good psychology practitioners will proceed to the modification or to the intervention or to the control of the behavior. We are not studying psychology just to name the behavior, especially those psychological disorders. But our goal is to modify or address the issue. Okay. Well, in our next video, we'll be talking about the different goals in the study of psychology. Knowing those goals will help us understand why psychology practitioners are very careful enough or keen enough to study the behavior of a person. Okay. So I hope you learned something about psychology and the real meaning and practice of psychology. So in the next meeting also we'll be talking about how to do scientific method in the field of psychology as part of our contemplation. Okay. So thank you very much for listening and for watching this video. Do not forget to subscribe and let our community grow also by sharing this video so that for those individuals or your friends who would like to understand psychology, then somehow they can follow. So again, thank you very much. See you next live video.